Today it's time for some real-time Copic colouring. Hi, it's Therese from Lostinpaper, and today I have a caffeinated fox to colour with you. And this is a stamp from the Rabbit Hole Designs, and I've stamped this lovely fox. She's on some Nino 80-pound white cardstock, and I've used some tuxedo black ink. So I've been doing some real-time colouring recently, and today I thought I'd share some Copic colouring, and this image just made me smile. I thought it was heaps of fun. So I'm kind of mucking around here a little bit. I wasn't really sure if I was going to leave white highlights in the image, but I should have just came in with my Y17 here and done a full coat of base colour, because that's what I ended up doing anyway. I am sort of working colour to colour here. I'm doing all the skin tone first. I don't know if you call this skin tone, it's fur tone. So I'm starting off with all the fur tone here. So next I'm going to add some shading, and I've got my darkest colour here. I am actually going to make one side of the head a bit darker than the other. I try not to have things like, because it is circular, you do want to give it the idea of depth and shade. But it looks more realistic if you actually have one side with more darkness. Now, this is really not coming out right. You don't want the light to look like it's coming straight down the middle of everything. So it's nice to have the light look offset on an image. It makes it look realer. Does that make a little bit more sense? It doesn't really matter though. As long as you're having fun colouring, it's only a card. And I've also found that over time, if I colour an image more than once, say twice, 3 times, the more times I colour it, the easier it gets for me. It's like I've learnt the image, so don't beat yourself up. If it's the first time you've coloured something, have another try. You'll still have fun. Alright, so with my shading, you can probably notice I've got 3 different tones for my fur tone, 3 different colours for my fur tone. I've added the light first, the darkest shading, and then I've drawn it out with the mid-tone. And that way, each time I sort of work from my darkest to my medium to my lightest, I'm actually blending each of them out so that I get a nice sort of graded or shadowed effect on the image. But I don't go over the whole portion that I've coloured, because what you'll find will happen is the lighter the colour you put on top will actually lift the darker colour up. So you're wasting ink. You might as well leave some of the darker tone there and just sort of blend out the edges where they meet. So sometimes I like to add like a more defined area of shading, like on the eyelids here. I didn't actually blend that out at all. I think that adds a really nice effect with shadow on an image, and I think that works best if you don't overblend, because you'll find that if the ink is still wet within the fibres of the paper, it does tend to change colour as it dries, and it will dry a little bit lighter. So what I often do is I work on a certain area and then I'll go to another area, but then I'll come back again and add more shade and depth, or change a colour sometimes, which I'll do a little bit later on here as well if I'm not happy with something. I love these bunny slippers. How cool are they? Okay, I have listed all the colours that I've used today at my blog, and you can find the link in the description below. You can also find some pictures of this card, so some still pictures if you need to, if you wanted to zoom in and have a look and see how the shading turned out. Oh, this is the bit I'm really, should I say, stuffed up here. I really wasn't happy with the way that I coloured the fox's ears and face. And I've already committed here at this point. I've done a lot of the colouring. Now, one way I could have got around this was to redo the head and attach a new head onto my fox. Because I tried to fix it by adding more colours on top of the ears and of the white portion of the face, and I just didn't like how it was turning out. So what I did instead was come in with my colourless blender and then just walked away for a while. And I find that works best for me, because sometimes when you think something actually looks really bad when you're colouring, when you come back to it later, it actually doesn't look as bad as you originally thought it did. Another thing I often do too, if I'm not happy with tones or colours, I'll change it completely, which is what I tried to do here, but then you'll find that I lifted it up instead. Or come in with my Prismacolor pencils and shade and add colours that way, and that always works for me. I added the suggestion of florals on the dressing gown just by doing really simple dotted flowers, and I'm just using the very tip of the markers there. And I found the colourless blender worked really well on lifting the colour off the white portion of the fox's face. And for the ears, I just actually changed the pink tone to the RV00 by going over top after everything had dried, and that worked really well for me. I was much happier with the way that this fox turned out then. And I did fussy cut this image out, just leaving a small white border. So it wasn't difficult to cut out at all. I find fussy cutting fairly therapeutic, although I do like my coordinating dies. Because I like the techniques that I can do with them. You know, you can make them into shakers or lay them up. It gives you a lot more options. But I've fussy cut for years, and I don't hate it. Some people hate fussy cutting, and it doesn't bother me. If you get a good pair of scissors and have some good music playing, it's quite therapeutic. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly throw the card together now. I'm creating a striped background. This is using a set called Painted Stripes. It's from Alan Hudson. It's one of the Essentials by Alan stamp sets. It's a pretty cool set with all different widths of stripes, and very it just gives a great stripy background. Or, you know, they're a little bit washy on the edges. I'm using a Catherine Pooler ink. The colour's called Mint to Be. It's really pretty blue-green. I cut the panel down to make it a bit smaller than my card front. Popped it up on some fun foam and attached it with some Be Creative tape to the front of a top fold card. I've white heat embossed a sentiment from the same stamp set and popped that up with some black foam dots. And I'm using my grid lines here on my mat to work out where the centre of the card is, so that I can actually attach everything. Popped up my image, and that way I know everything's going to be balanced well. So if you like this video, please like it, and if you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. I always enjoy your visits here and read every single comment, and they make my day. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.